Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is very well. Hello and good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is very, very well, and I hope everybody's looking forward to the weekend. And I'll say welcome to my little bit of a live stream. Sorry if it's still a little bit darkish on my camera. I cannot help the way it is, unfortunately, at the moment. Because of a simple reason. A simple reason. I don't have the best. Hang on a minute. Maybe this might help. Not really. It's a bit. It's not the best. No, it's not really the best. It's like I can't really do anything in this bedroom. But the thing is, the connection's a lot better than what it was. Than what it is downstairs. I could do my live stream in my little back hall, but there's the real chance that the internet will fail on me badly, and so I tend to do them up here best I can, and that's the reason why I did a live stream with Regan Elite last night. I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually. It was pretty good fun, and enjoyed the crack, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. But anyway, hello Duke Vengeance. I hope you're really well. Really do. Hope you're well. How's things going? Just out of interest, you can hear me all well, and so I hope you can hear. Everything. Everything sounds fine. I've got the fan on as if it starts. If it starts irritating you, I'll turn it off and suffer in the what you call it, the in the heat. It's 'cause it's still a bit warm, especially up here. So, but I'll just give me a quick minute. Yes. So hello, quick. Just give me a quick. Get myself all organised. So you're looking forward to the weekend then, Duke Vengeance? Got anything planned, or? Bloody dogs. They're a nightmare, aren't they? Yeah, what kind of dog have you got anyway? And so we used to have a Patterdale, and say what's she lacked in height. She more than made up in character and heart, and should be very badly missed. But so as I say, the reason why I'm sort of like going to do this live stream, because as I say, when I was on Regan Elite's channel last night, I were talking about what's future for this channel, and I'd been having a little bit of an idea in my head of maybe I should do something about, you know, the situation what's over in America, because the one thing I've always found quite fascinating is people who are Trump supporters, you know, because I suppose it's in a way it's a little bit of one man's pain is one man's pleasure, I suppose, because for me, I don't see the fascination. I find the guy quite incredibly boring. But you know, it's each to their own, isn't it? You like what you like, I suppose. But I suppose people on this channel, they will see straight through him easily, because we all can tell he's just basically just what you class a serial liar and a grifter. And so, but when it comes, you watch their fans, his fans, I suppose you could see, I find them fascinating, the way they just contort themselves into all sorts of funny little shapes, where they will try and defend him to the hilt. You know, in their eyes, he can do no wrong, can't he? So, but anyway, so what I'd planned to do for a while, I had it on my channel with some little bits of articles where because I wanted to find out, I had an idea what makes him tick, and then I moved on to what makes them tick. And then I'm thinking, is it a cult or isn't it a cult? So what I was thinking of doing, I thought, why don't I just have a little look? Because I was thinking about maybe making a video about it, just for a bit of interest. And then I thought, you know what? Why don't you just make a bit of a live stream about it? You know, where we can have a little chat about it, and we can watch a couple of little videos in between. So, because I know it's usually the last few weeks where I've watched some videos of people who you shouldn't take seriously. But I just thought, why don't I just do something a little bit different, you know? And that's the reason why I just thought, why don't we just have a little look at these couple of little interesting articles where they go on from Donald Trump then to his fans, and there's one or two others. I think I've got two more where I can't remember what the third one is, and then the fourth one is about, should they be called a cult? But anyway, so I just thought, why don't I make a bit of a Friday live stream? But anyway, just out of interest, can you still hear me, everyone? Because can't see many people in the chat, so I don't want to be talking into the ether and like I was doing before, and nobody was watching. So if you can just let me know on that. It's like, as far as I know, I am still streaming, so just making sure. That's like all I can see at the moment is Duke Vengeance. But anyway, what I will do is, you know, the show must go on, and what we'll do is we'll start this little first article, because like I was looking for little articles, you know, sort of like get some ideas, and a few of these Psychology Today articles, it sort of like went from the psychology to Donald Trump to his fans, and they were all very, very interesting, and you kind of sort of like got a little idea where, and yeah, that's it. Trump followers, the third one, and the fourth one, I've got about 5 actually. Think twice about saying they're a cult, and there's a 5th one which I found interesting, was how and why mainly America usually follow a sort of like cult. So, and they were all very, very interesting. But hello, Roger Haslock. I hope you're well. How's the weather in Portugal? Yes. Oh, glad you can hear me, Duke Vengeance. Just cheers for that. But how's the weather in Portugal? Because it's been a bit of, has its moment of overcastness here. Hello, Patricia. Hope you're well. Yeah, quite possible. Yeah, acolytes. Yeah, I suppose in a way that, because yeah, but yeah, I was sort of like reading, and they were really, really interesting. I thought, why don't I just make a bit of a live stream and just share it, and we'll start off with the sort of like psychology of is it blazing 36 degrees? Jesus Christ. I remember when I went to it's one of the Canary Islands. The name's just escaped me. Hello, Dennis. Hello, Captain Bartwell Roberts. Hope you're well. In the south coast of England. Yes, it's sunny, blazing hot up here in West Yorkshire as well. And it's had its moments where it's been a bit overcast, and then the sun comes out, and my son's in the back garden just enjoying a couple of beers and enjoying the sun, and he does right. But anyway, well, I'll say what we'll do is we'll get into this article, and it's a bit of an article here on the Psychology Today, and while I'm reading it, I might not see what you're tweeting, but we'll have a chat after this one. 37 degrees tomorrow. Oh wow! But I went one of them, and it was, there were a couple of days where it was a touching 40. And it was touching 40 where we were there, and I was just thinking, too much for me. I enjoy the sun, but it's too much for me, and I was just sitting in the shade. But anyway, let's crack on with this interesting article. And because the reason why I've done it this way, the first one, because this article tends to lead into the second one, and they're both really, really interesting. There'll be a lot of stuff you'll probably all know about our Donald Trump, but anyway, I'll get into this, and I'll get back to you after it. We'll have a little chat about it. But yeah, it's sort of like the psychology of Donald Trump, and there's part of it where is her name Mary Trump? She's got a little hand in this, because she's quite up in this. Yeah, I'm just making sure everything's. But like it says, in 2017, a group of mental health professionals gathered at a Duty to Warn conference and then published their informed opinions in the book, The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, contending that he was unfit for president. In the book, they illustrated their professional perceptions of Donald Trump and with his statements and actions, knowing at that point, and this goes on about, see also 2020 film Unfit for the discussions of the psychology of Donald Trump. That might be something to show interest in. But anyway, many of the mental health professionals drew a connection between Donald Trump's behaviour and extreme or pathological narcissism, which entails entitlement, exploitation and empathy impairment, along with the typical characteristics of narcissism. And we've got a few lists down there, like believing you are superior to others, fantasizing about success, exaggerating talents and achievements, expecting constant admiration and praise, believing you are special and acting that way, failing to recognize others' feelings, expecting others to do what you want, taking advantage of others, expressing disdain for the inferior, jealousy of others, easily hurt and rejected, having a fragile emotional, setting unrealistic goals, unable to keep healthy relationships. And Craig Malkin, who's got a PhD, pointed out that pathological narcissism can spiral into a psychotic spiral of paranoia, impaired and volatile decision-making, and gaslighting. Oh dear. And Lance Dodds, who's an MD, he reminded readers of the characteristics of antisocial personal disorder, failure to conform to laws and social norms, deceitfulness, impulsivity, irritability and aggressiveness, reckless disregard for safety of others and of self, pattern of irresponsibility, lack of remorse, conduct disorder, impulsivity, aggressiveness, callousness and deceitfulness, starting, and it says on page 15, but yeah, and it's outrage or intelligence, but anyway, we won't go too much in that. But Dodds discussed sociopathy and its various descriptions, which all include cruel, callous, bullying, dehumanizing, sadistic, unempathetic, predatory, devaluing and immoral behaviour. Sociopaths project their feelings onto others who are seen as aggressive and dangerous. Sociopaths exhibit a loss of reality, attack others with raging outbursts. People are characterised in the moment as good or evil, with loyalty critical for landing in the good category. And he described Donald Trump's behaviour as fitting into these categories. Yeah, you can tell when it comes to loyalty, Donald Trump, he gets off on it, doesn't he? So, yeah, but John D. Gartner, he's PhD, he adopts the Eric Fromm's from 1964 term malignant narcissism to describe Donald Trump's behaviour. Fromm said, malignant narcissism represented the severest of pathologies, the cause of the most vicious destructiveness and inhumanity. Malignant narcissism includes narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial behaviour, paranoid traits and sadism. Garter argued that Donald Trump's behaviour demonstrates not only the badness of malignant narcissism, but madness, a hypomatic temperament needing constant stimulation. Yeah. I don't think we'll disagree with any of that, do we? But yeah, we've all seen a lot of Mary Trump, and she's had a lot to say about him, hasn't she? But she's in this, the niece of Donald Trump, and a mental health professional, so she'll know of what she speaks, won't she? Has an inside scoop family and writes about it in a book, Too Much and Never Enough. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of that J.D. Rockefeller. I think it was him who said that, and somebody asked him, when will you be happy with that you've got enough money? And his reply, whatever it was, when I just get a few more dollars more. Yeah. So, and created, but anyway, how my family created the world's most dangerous man. As a clinician herself, she gives us insights into the childhood and family culture, linking them to his behaviour today. She describes a nightmare of a childhood relative to a supportive ecological system for raising a human being. Donald Trump's basic emotional needs were reportedly not provided for during sensitive periods. He is described as having been an aggressive, uncontrollable child, suggesting that he was not provided with the responsive care needed in the first years of life. Yeah, very interesting. And although she cannot show us his first 2 years of life at the time when systems were undergrid emotional and behavioural self-regulation, society and cooperation are being constructed by parental care. She tells us he lost his mother to hospitalisation and was left in the non-care of a high-functioning sociopath of a father. Yeah, it's usually the case. The apple don't usually fall too far from the tree, does it? Fred Trump. And according to her, Fred Trump had no interest in the children. He rebuffed the attachment-seeking behaviour of Donald Trump and his nine-month-old and his younger 9-month-old brother Robert, who learned to equate neediness with humiliation, despair, and hopelessness. Jesus Christ, that is awful, innit? But yeah, who wrote this? But anyway, I think it might be Mary Trump that wrote this. Child abuse is, in some sense, the experience of too much or not enough. Will be. Donald directly experienced the not enough in the loss of connection to his mother as a crucial development stage, which was deeply traumatic. Without warning, his needs weren't being met, and his fears and longings went unsoothed. Having been abandoned by his mother for at least a year and having his father fail not only to meet his needs but to make him feel safe or loved, valued, or mirrored. Donald suffered deprivations that would scar him for life. As he grew older, Donald was subjected to my grandfather's too muchness, should I say, at second hand, witnessing what happened to Freddie when he was on the receiving end of too much attention, too much expectation, and much saliently, too much humiliation. Jesus. It does sound like did sound like a bit of a nutter, didn't it? And the world revolved around Fred's authoritarianism. You can see in a pattern, aren't you, really? Donald Trump's mother was reputedly narcissistic herself, unstable and needy, thinking more of her needs than those of her children. She left the raising of the boys to her husband, who did not pay attention to anyone initially except Donald Trump's older brother, Freddie, who apparently that's Mary Trump's father, who was expected to take over the father's business. As Mary Trump tells it, Donald Trump watched as his father humiliated and smashed his elder brother's spirit, a more sensitive and creative personality than his father or brother, and characteristics unappreciated by his father, who thought only of money, making money, and fragility. One's finances worth was self-worth. Donald Trump watched and learned to be what his father wanted. His father was a successful real estate developer who benefited from government programs. Fred was impressed by Donald Trump's brashness and boldness. They got on well because they had similar traits, and Donald Trump did not seem to let his father's cruelty affect him. And she gives extensive examples of sociopathic behaviour in the father. He was emotionally abusive towards anyone. People were belittled and silenced. She describes a certain emotional numbness in the household, inability to express vulnerability or soft feelings, even when people were suffering or died. Then she goes, what vices were encouraged in the family, as Mary Trump described it? Lying, selfishness, contempt, cruelty, low empathy, hubris, using people, ruthlessness, greed. What virtues were discouraged? Empathy, kindness, humility, should I say, honesty. What was encouraged? Obedience to the will of Fred Trump. And then she goes on to, this account of Donald Trump is the epitome of how child raising practices in dominator cultures damage children. And that's Esler and Fry 2019. And especially in boys who may have less built-in resilience and need more nurturing due to their slower maturation. All right, that's from Shaw 2017. Under-nurtured boys often develop a focus on ranking hierarchy and dominance, not apparent in harmonious families who do not coerce their children. And that's Burmaid 1971. Sorry if I'm butchering these names, but I think these are quotes what people are saying. And nor in our ancestral context. Sorensen, can't they just call somebody like Smith? Everybody called Smith. It'd be far easier for me. 1998. In a dominator culture, nurturing is undervalued. Competition and ruthlessness are encouraged. When human beings are alienated from relationship and insecurity attached to mother, securely attached to mother, family, community, and planet, they may be especially likely to become destructive. That was from, again, 1941, because the wrong capacities will be enforced from domination, primitive systems that are prehuman and innate, and they won't know any better because they are missing key capacities for social intelligence. They will have forms of dysregulation, should I say, good God, such as emotional dysregulation, blaming others for their stress response. In the worst cases, they will develop pathologies mentioned above. Yeah, and it also says in the same 2017 book, Thomas Singer, MD, puzzles over the American psyche that voted Donald Trump in office. He suggests, like others, that America has turned into a spectacle are more attractive. He thinks the nation has a wounded collective psyche. The wound is exhibited in an explicit extinction anxiety, which encompasses not only a person's personal security, mobile income, job security, but the country's inequality, perceived challenges from non-white groups, standing in the world community, and planetary well-being. When Americans say they want their country back, they are expressing these complex anxieties. So, yeah, really, really interesting. Very, very interesting. Give me a quick minute. Let's have a quick look. Gives it away. Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. Absolutely. All absolutely one angry pagan. Absolutely. All hail the badger. All hail the badger. Yeah. It's all attached to him mum being committed. Yes. Pets went missing when he was a child. Yes, it won't surprise me. Yes. They've not to mention the match. Hello, Tracy. I hope you're well. And you've subscribed to Mary Trump's emails, so I get one just about every day. She said in one day not to mention the mashed potatoes at the family dinner. Oh wow. Yeah, is that what he did? I said, I've not really read to it. Yeah, Stone, was that true? Wow. Just shows you what a horrible individual he is, isn't he? But yeah, and like I says, you could tell straight away that the apple don't fall too far from the tree, does it? And it just shows in this video that I'm about sure, where you just see the difference in and when I watch this video, it basically just exemplifies everything you read here, especially with Donald Trump, and it just shows you the difference with Tim Walz. It's because what Tim Walz see, you just can't fake that, really, can you? You could just tell he is what he is, isn't he?
And if anybody goes down, if you start going down, we have people, they'll pick you up right away. They'll throw water. You know, they were so worried. Everybody was so worried yesterday about you. And they never mentioned me. I'm up here sweating like a dog. Secret Service said, we have to make sure everyone's safe. I said, what about me? Oh, we never thought of it. They don't think about me. I'm working my ass off. I'm working hard.
Freedom is when... Freedom is... Oh! Can we get somebody to help? Somebody's hot. Somebody's hot. Can we get somebody to help? You okay?
Just can't fake that, can you?
Drink some water, folks. It is hot out. Get somebody else.
You know, it stops everything. You know.
You get water?
But yeah, he's just laser focused. He's more worried about that individual, and you just can't fake that, can you? To be fair to Tim, he's just playing a blinder, isn't he? Absolutely playing a blinder.
Thank you all for helping. Grateful. Thank you.
It's just your typical American.
Thank y'all. Take care of one another on this. This is why we gather. Look, it's hot. It is hot. I'll come again. They've got folks here. We'll make sure we're okay. But I have to tell you all again, in all seriousness, to come and gather like this, to talk about our freedoms, the ability to talk about what could be good. And I have to say, this idea of caring for our neighbor and kindness and a hand up when somebody needs it, or just the sense of that people go through things and to be able to be there when they need it, that's who we are. It's not about mocking. It's not name callings. And you see it.
You just can't fake that, can you? And let's be honest, the more you watch him, you just think, yeah, Kamala Harris has just played a blinder there. She's just picked the perfect running mate. I just think absolutely brilliant. Because like, I remember watching the full video, and he was absolutely knocking it out the park. Absolutely. And he was just had them all in raptures. He just spotted that person and stopped everything. And I suppose in a way he could have felt a bit of pressure to, just try and carry on and ignore it. But because like you're under the pressure, you're under the spotlight. But no, we weren't going to have a bat of it, were he? That person's in trouble, needs help. Absolutely brilliant. But we all remember this absolute disaster. And I think it kind of highlights how he is, because weren't this at the Mar-a-Lago? I'm sure you guys in the chat will be able to tell me. But what's wrong? I think he's properly on the decline, isn't he?
She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's seen. She picked a radical left man that is, he's got things done that he has positions that are just not, it's not even possible to believe that they exist. He's going for things that nobody's ever even heard of. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds. She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's.
Yes, radical left. He's into the trans world. He's into other worlds. Proper weirdos. They're proper mad, and they are radical lefties. They're going to steal your car, steal your gun, steal your house, steal your children. Mad. And he does it.
And if anybody goes down, if you start going down, we have.
Shut up, dickhead. but yeah, that when you saw that first video, it just kind of absolutely. Hello, Reagan. Hello. Can I just say, and honor and privilege. And if you're not subscribed to Reagan or Elite, please subscribe. He does brilliant work, and honor and privilege to be invited onto his show. I was well minted, and we had a right good crack, and we had a good conversation, and hopefully look forward to doing it again. But yeah, as I say when you watch that video, the difference is just obvious, isn't it? You know, because like before all that happened with Tim Walz, they were absolutely, the place was bouncing. It was absolutely bouncing, and you could tell straight away. Yeah, we certainly did. My friend Reagan and and they were bouncing. As soon as he spotted that individual, everything stopped. In his mind, I don't care. You know, that person's. He's like your reliable dad, isn't he? He'll be somebody. He'll be there for you. He'll be somebody. He'll be there for you. You know, if you're in a spot of bother, you don't know where you are. Ring up, right? Give me some real recognizable sites and. Stay there, I'm coming for you. And you can tell that's just sort of person he is. And I can imagine, you know, when he was coach of that football team, you know, after you've had a team talk with him, you would run through brick walls for him, wouldn't you? You would absolutely run through absolute brick walls and no matter what. But anyway, hello, Billy Kershaw. Don't worry, I'll make it up for you. My running mate, Billy Kershaw, my running mate, best VP this country's ever had. Does great work. He knows words. He has the best words. He knows all the best words. Smart guy. Hello, Billy. Hope you well. But yeah, I totally agree. Solaric, complete nutter. But anyway, after that, it came to the complete psychological analysis of Trump support, because usually on the bottom other articles, and I just came to that and I thought, now this would be something I'd be very, very interested in, because I just don't see what they say. I just see a sad, boring old man who just waffles on about the first thing that comes into his head, and you can tell clearly he detests America. He hates it because he's got nothing positive to say about it. Anyway, we'll get into this. As I say, while I'm going through this, I might not be able to see your comments, so I'll get back to you when I've gone through this. It says, whether we want to or not, we must try to understand the Donald Trump phenomenon, as it has completely swept the nation and also fiercely divided it. I've got to remember, this is a couple of years old, but I still, even today, I think it's still quite relevant, isn't it? What is most baffling about all this is Trump's apparent political invincibility. And it's true, isn't it, really? You know, according to his supporters, no matter, he could walk into somebody's house and just abuse a member of their female family, and the Trump supporter will blame those who's been the victim, won't they? They'll say, "Oh, well, you dress provocatively," and they could have been just wearing a bin bag, you know. But anyway, as he said, as he himself said, even before he won the presidential election. How is it true he actually said this? I've heard some people say he didn't, but I've heard some people say he did. I could stand on the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I won't lose voters. And unfortunately for the American people, the wild-sounding claim appears to be truer than not. It should also motivate us to explore the science underlying such peculiar, should I say, human behaviour, so we can learn from it and potentially inoculate against it. And in fairness, we should recognise that line is sadly not uncommon for politicians on both sides of the political aisle, but the frequency and magnitude of the current president's, let's say, while he was president at the time, should have us all wondering why they haven't destroyed his political career, instead perhaps strengthening it. And similarly, we should be asking why his inflammatory rhetoric and numerous scandals haven't sunk him. Yeah, it's like, if it had been anybody else, they'd have been gone, wouldn't they? And we're talking about a man who was caught on tape saying, when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything, grab him by the pussy. And politically surviving that video is not normal, it ain't really, or anything close to it, and such a revelation would likely have been the end of Barack Obama, and George Bush had it surfaced weeks before the election. While dozens of psychologists have analysed Trump to explain the man's political invincibility, it is more important to understand the minds of his staunch supporters. While various popular articles have illuminated a multitudes of reasons for his unwavering support, there appears to be no comprehensive analysis that contains all of them. Since there seems to be a real demand for this information, I have, and whoever it is, I've forgotten who, should have said who wrote it. Yeah. Bobby as the reigning. You've just said being called Bobby Smith. Why do you've got all these really difficult names? Disgraceful. Is it? But yeah, yeah. But while dozens of psychologists have analysed Trump to explain the man's political, it's more important to understand the minds of his stones. While various popular outlets have eliminated a multitude of reasons for waiving, there appears to be a comprehensive analysis that contains all of them, since there seems to be a real demand for this information. Yeah, I have tried to provide the analysis below. And goes on with this psychology of Trump supporters. I just found were very interesting. And so some of the explanations from the two of them were published in the Journal of Social Political Psychology by the psychologists and the UC Santa Cruz professor Thomas Pettigrew. Thank God, somebody with a pronounceable name. Thank God. Others have been put forth as far back as 2016, and for me, in various articles and blog posts for publications like Psychology Today. A number of these were inspired by insights by psychologists like Sheldon Solomon, another one with a easy name to pronounce, thank God for that, who laid the groundwork for the influential terror management theory, and David Dunning, that name sounds familiar, doesn't it? Who did the same for the Dunning-Kruger effect. Yes. And the list will begin with more benign reasons for Trump's intransigent support. As the list goes on, the explanations become increasingly worrisome and towards the end border on the pathological. It should be strongly emphasised that not all Trump supporters are racist, mentally vulnerable or fundamentally bad people. Some of them are great people on all sides. And it could be detrimental to society when those with degrees and platforms try to demonise their political opponents or paint them as mentally ill when they are not. That being said, it is just as harmful to pretend that there are not clear psychological and neural factors that underlie much of Trump supporters' unbridled allegiance. And that's what Psychology for them describes. Most below mostly pertain to those supporters who would follow Trump off a cliff. Oh yeah, they would, wouldn't they? Those are the people who will stand by his side no matter what scandal comes to light or what sort of evidence of immoral and illegal behaviour surfaces. And like the first one is practically Trump's morality. And it's said for some wealthy people it's just simply a financial matter. Trump offers tax cuts for the rich and wants to do away with government regulation that gets in the way of businessmen making money, even when that regulation exists for the purpose of protecting the environment. Like others, like blue-collar workers, like the fact that the president is trying to bring jobs back to America. Make America great again. From places like China. Some people who genuinely are not racist. Those who are will be discussed. They'll be discussed later. With open borders, simply want stronger immigration laws because they know that a country with open borders is not sustainable. Yeah, but we all know full well that they are going to pass a law under this, and he kibossed it, didn't he? Because he wanted to use it for his own end for this election, didn't he? We all know that. But anyway, to them, it does not make a difference if he is a vagina grabber. I'm a vagina grabber. Yes, I grab vaginas. Yes. When you're a star, you can just pretty much do whatever you want. I grab vaginas. Or if his campaign team colluded with Russia to help him defeat his political opponent, it is unknown whether these people are eternally bound to Trump. In a way, others are. But we may soon find out if the Mueller investigation is allowed to come to completion. As far as I know, it did it really, but yeah, but number two, brain attention system is more strongly engaged by Trump. Now, according to a study that mentioned the monitor brain activity while participants watched 40 minutes of political ads and debate clips from the presidential candidates, Donald Trump is unique in his ability to keep the brain engaged. See, well, the thing is for me, like I said earlier on, one person's pain, I suppose it's another person's pleasure. I find him incredibly dull. I just find his ramblings incredibly boring. But after I watched one rally, after about 5 minutes, I were blowing in there and looking at, oh, look, there's a pigeon over there. Then 10 minutes, I'm thinking, my brain would just turn into mush. So, but anyway, while Hillary Clinton could only hold attention for so long, Trump kept both attention and emotional arousal. I can keep emotional arousal high. I've got high emotional arousal. I can just do it. I'm the Don. High emotional arousal high throughout the viewing session. This pattern of activity is seen even when Trump made remarks that individually didn't necessarily agree with. His showmanship and simple language clearly resonate with some of the visceral, or some at a visceral level. And yeah, say what you will, but you know, he doesn't know how to work the camera, doesn't he? He knows exactly what he's doing in that situation, doesn't he? But anyway, but anyway, number 3 was America's obsession with entertainment and celebrities, and this one sort of like, maybe there's a little something in this, but yeah, I'll say essentially the loyalty of Trump supporters may be explained by America's addiction to entertainment and reality TV. Now, I don't know how many people who are watching this and living in America will attest to that, but I found that interesting, and to some it doesn't matter what Trump actually says because he's so amusing to watch. With the Donald, you are always left wondering what outrageous thing is he going to say or do next. He keeps us on the edge of our seats. Well, it didn't with me either, but for that reason, some Trump supporters will forgive anything he says. They are happy as long as they are kept entertained. Yes. Very interesting. And like the 4th one is, this one struck me, was some people just want to watch the world burn. You know, some people are supporting Trump simply to be rebellious or to introduce chaos into the political system. They may have such distaste for the establishment and Democrats like Hillary Clinton, crooked Hillary, that their support for Trump is a symbolic middle finger directed at Washington. These people may have other issues like an innate desire to troll others or an obsession with Schadenfreude. Yeah, but that one struck it with me. And you think, yeah, there will be people who are like that, you know, who just want to watch the world burn. And this one, the fear factor. Conservatives are more sensitive to threat. Science has shown that the conservative brain has an exaggerated fear response when faced with stimuli that may be perceived as threatening. A 2008 study in the journal Science found that conservatives have a stronger psychological reaction to startling noises and graphic images compared to liberals. That's interesting, isn't it? That is really, really interesting. A brain imaging study published by Current Biology revealed that those who lean right politically tend to have a larger amygdala. Sorry if I butchered it. But that's interesting. A structure that is electrically active during states of fear and anxiety. And a 2014 fMRI study found that it is possible to predict whether someone is a liberal or conservative simply by looking at their brain activity, while they view threatening or disgusting images such as mutilated bodies, specifically the brains of self-identified conservatives, generated more activity overall in response to the disturbing images. So, oh dear. Yes, Sir Larry, the car was doing a homer. Yeah. I'll say, is everything still alright? Because I've just noticed on my studio chat something went a bit haywire. That were all. But just making sure everything's alright. But yeah, we'll carry on. But anyway. But yeah, that is fascinating. Really, really fascinating. Anyway, their brain responses are automatic and not influenced by logic or reason. As long as Trump continues to portray Muslims and Hispanic immigrants as imminent threats, many conservative brains will involuntarily light up like light bulbs, being controlled by a switch. Fear keeps his followers energized and focused on safety, and when you think you found your protector, you become less concerned with offensive and divisive remarks. Interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm just gonna give me a quick minute. Just want to. Yeah. Well, just making sure, see if everything's. Yeah, everything seems to be all right. I just thought for a minute something had just gone off in my studio, but yeah, everything seems to be all right. Yeah, same shit, different country. Totally agree. But but number 6, the power of mortality reminders and perceived existential threat. Interesting. That a well-supported theory from social psychology known as terror management theory explains why Trump's fearmongering is doubly effective. The theory is based on the fact that humans have a unique awareness of their own mortality. The inevitability of one's death creates existential terror and anxiety that is always residing below the surface. In order to manage this terror, humans adopt cultural worldviews like religions, political ideologues, and national identities. That act is a buffer by instilling life with meaning and value. Very interesting. And team management theory predicts that when people are reminded of their own mortality, which happens with fear-mongering, they will more strongly defend those who share their worldviews and national or ethnic identity, and act out more aggressively towards those who do not. Hundreds of studies have supported the hypothesis, and some have specifically shown that triggering thoughts of death threats to shift people towards the right. And not only do death reminders increase nationalism, and they may influence voting habits in favour of more conservative presidential candidates. And more disturbingly, in a study with American students, scientists found that making mortality salient increased support for extreme military interventions by American forces that could kill thousands of civilians overseas. Interestingly, the effect was present only in conservatives. To look at the paranoia which is driven by their government for the last 50 years. Yeah, you're probably right, actually. Probably less known. And and by constantly emphasizing existential threat, Trump may be creating a psychological condition that makes the brain respond positively rather than negatively to bigoted statements and divisive rhetoric. Very interesting. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Humans often overestimate their political expertise. Yes. Hello, Stephen Bankier. I hope you're well. I'm David Gerardo. Hope I spell that right. Hope I said it right, actually. I do hate butchering people's names, so I do apologise. But yeah, hello, I hope you're all well and looking forward to the weekend. But anyway, we'll get into this. Some who supported... I'm not paranoid. Who goes there? Yeah. But anyway, some who support Donald Trump are underinformed or misinformed about the issues at hand. When Trump tells them that crime is skyrocketing in the United States, or that the economy is the worst it's ever been, they're simply taking his word for it. And yeah, you do. We saw last time where he was having that interview where he was talking about, oh, no, they do now. They have the baby, and then they put it down to one side, and then they decide, what do we do with this baby? Should we abort the baby? Should we abort the baby? We'll spend a couple of weeks. We'll just leave it there while we spend a few weeks deciding whether to abort baby or not. Should we abort the baby? Yeah, and I've seen a few people who have been saying that. You just think, really? The Dunning-Kruger effect explains that the problem isn't just that they are misinformed, it's that they are completely unaware that they are misinformed, which creates a double burden. And studies have shown that people who lack expertise in some areas of knowledge often have a cognitive bias that prevents them from realizing that they lack expertise. As psychologist David Dunning puts it in an apt for put it into an apt op-ed for Politico, saying the knowledge and intelligence that are required to be good at tasks are often the same qualities needed to recognise that one is not good at that task, should I say. And if one lacks such knowledge and intelligence, one remains ignorant that one is not good at the task. This includes political judgment. These people cannot be reached because they mistakenly believe they are the ones who should be reaching others. Interesting. And also there's number 8, relative deprivation, a misguided sense of entitlement. The relative deprivation refers to the experience of being deprived of something to which one believes they are entitled. It is the discontent felt when one compares their position in life to others who they feel are equal or inferior, but have unfairly had more success than them. Also, but anyway, common explanations for Trump's popularity among non-bigoted voters involve economics. There is no doubt that some Trump supporters are simply angry that American jobs are being lost to Mexico and China, which is certainly understandable, although these loyalties often ignore the fact that some of these careers are actually being lost due to the accelerating pace of automation. And these Trump supporters are experiencing relative deprivation and are common among the swing states like Idaho, Michigan and Pennsylvania. Now, I don't know whether that'll be true in this same election, but I suppose only time will tell. And this kind of deprivation is specifically referred to as relative as opposed to absolute, because the feeling is often based on a skewed perception of what one is entitled to. Yeah, exactly, Sir Larry. China. Totally agree, Sir Larry. But anyway, number 5 is a lack of exposure to dissimilar others. And an intergroup contact refers to contact with members of groups that are outside one's own, which has been experimentally shown to reduce prejudice. As such, yeah, it kind of reminded me of the Brexit vote, that those who were voting to leave due to the fact that they didn't want immigration usually lived in places that didn't have that much, if any, immigration, did this. So it kind of rings true. As such, it's important to note that there is growing evidence that Trump's white supporters have experienced significant less contact with minorities than other Americans. For example, a 2016 study found that the radical and ethnic isolation of whites at the zip code level is one of the strongest predictors of Trump support. Yes, they love me. They love me. This correlation persists while controlling for dozens of other variables. In agreement with this finding, the same researchers found that support for Trump increased with the voters' physical distance from the Mexican border. These radical biases might be more implicit than explicit. The latter, which we'll be addressed in 14, I suppose we'll get to that. It's 3 a.m. in... My God. But hope it's not too hot in Oz, my friend. But anyway, number 10 is Trump's conspiracy theories target the mentally vulnerable. No shit, Sherlock. And while the conspiracy theorists who predominantly support Donald Trump and crackpot allies like Alex Jones and shadowier QAnon may appear to just be an odd quirk of modern society, some of them may suffer from psychological illness that involve paranoia and delusions such as schizophrenia, or are at least vulnerable to them, like those with schizosphy personalities. Sorry if I butchered that. Trying to get me a Yorkshire twang of my teeth into it then. But anyway, the link between schizosphy, I suppose it could be that, and belief in constant theories as well established, and a recent study published in the journal Psychiatry Research has demonstrated that it is still very prevalent in the population. The researchers found that those who were more likely to believe an outlandish conspiracy theory, such as the idea that the US government created the AIDS epidemic, constantly scored high on measures of odd beliefs and magical thinking. I love those with magical thinking. They think magically. Wonderful people. They endorse me, you know. One feature of magical thinking is a tendency to make connections between things that are actively unrelated in reality. Donald Trump and media allies target those people directly. All one has to do is visit alt-right websites and discussion boards to see the evidence for such manipulation. This is interesting. Number 11, Trump taps into the nation's collective narcissism. And collective narcissism is an unrealistic shared belief in the greatness of one's national group. It often occurs when a group who believes it represents the true identity of a nation, the in-group. In this case, white Americans perceives itself as being disadvantaged compared to out-groups who are getting ahead of them unrightfully. This psychological phenomenon is related to relative deprivation. A study published last year in the journal Social Psychology and Personality Science found a direct link between national collective narcissism and support of Donald Trump. This correlation was directed by researchers at the University of Walsall who've been at Walsall a few times. Not always. Oh no, that's Walsall, not Walsall. What an idiot I am. Anyway, who surveyed over 400 Americans with a series of questionnaires about political and social beliefs, where individual narcissism caused aggressiveness towards other individuals. Collective narcissism involves negative attitudes and aggression towards outsider groups, outgroups who are perceived as threats. And Donald Trump exacerbates collective narcissism with his anti-immigration, anti-elitist and strongly nationalistic rhetoric by referring to his supporters an overwhelmingly white group as being true patriots. You are true patriots, real Americans, and he promotes a brand of populism that is the epitome of identity politics, a term that is usually associated with the political left. The radical left, they're all radical leftists. Left-wing identity politics is misguided as they may sometimes be, are generally aimed at achieving equality, while the right-wing brand is based on a belief that one nation or race is superior or entitled to success and wealth of no other reason than identity. Interesting. We're nearly there. Hello, JB. Hope you're well. Yes, thank you. I'll take that. Yes, I'll do my best. One does best while living in Yorkshire. But anyway, the desire to want to dominate others. Interesting. Social dominance orientation, which is direct from being related to authoritarian personality, refers to people who have a preference for the social hierarchy of groups, specifically with a structure in which the high status groups have dominance over the lower status ones. Those with SDO are typically dominant, tough-minded, and driven by self-interest. In Trump's speeches, he appeals to those with social dominance orientation by repeatedly making a clear indication between groups that have a generally higher status in society, white, and those groups that are typically thought of as belonging to a lower status immigrants and minorities, I should say. And in a 1916 study of 406 American adults published last year in their journal Personality and Individual Differences, found that those who scored high on both social dominance orientation and authoritarian were more likely to vote for Trump in the election. All right, so Larry the Cat. Yes. Was that sausage fingers? Oh, yes, very sausage fingers. Ooh. Oh, when will my mother go away so I can be king? Ooh. Number 13. Authoritarian personality. Thank you, Duke Vengeance. I'll do my best. Authoritarian personality. Authoritarian refers to the advocacy of or enforcement of strict obedience to authority at the expense of personal freedom. It is commonly associated with a lack of concern for the opinions or needs of others. An authoritarian personality is characterized by belief in total and complete obedience to authority. In other words, practically near enough loyalty, isn't it? Those with the personality often display aggression towards outgroup members, submissiveness to authority, resistance to new experience, and a rigid hierarchical view of society. Authoritarianism is often triggered by fear, making it easy for leaders who exaggerate threat or fearmonger to gain their allegiance. And although authoritarian personality is found among liberals, it is more common among the right wing. Around the world, President Trump's speeches, which include absolutist terms like loser and a complete disaster, yes, Sleepy Joe, complete disaster, are naturally appealing to those with such a personality. while research shows that Republican voters in the US score higher than Democrats on measures of authoritarianism before Trump emerged on the political scene. In a 2016 political survey found that higher authoritarianism greatly favoured then candidate Trump, which led to a correct prediction that he would win the election, despite the polls saying otherwise. And last but not least, racism and bigotry. Yeah, it would be grossly unfair to inaccurate to say that every one of Trump's supporters have prejudice against ethnic and religious minorities, but it would be equally inaccurate to say that few do. The Republican Party, among Republican backers, Richard Nixon, I had a bit of the Trump side, and Richard Nixon's Southern strategy has historically used tactics that appeal, lacing speeches with dog whistles, code words that signalled prejudice towards minorities that were designed to be heard by racists but no one else. While the dog whistles of the past were subtler, Trump's signalling is sometimes shockingly direct. So direct you can it's liable to drop on your toe and break your toe, innit? You know, there's no denying that he routinely appeals to racists and bigoted supporters when he calls Muslims dangerous and Mexican immigrants rapists. They're all rapists, and some of them are nice people too. And murderers, rapists, murderers, some nice people too. Often in a blank, and perhaps unsurprisingly, a recent study has shown that support for Trump is correlated with a standard scale of modern racism. So very, very interesting. There's a lot of stuff in there that when I was reading it before, it was just very, very eye-opening. So I say, just what do you think about that? You've got an interesting night tonight, Captain Bart Roberts. I'm debating a veg salad or a prawn de plaza. You must try the prawn de plaza. Prawn de plaza. Oh, it's very interesting. You know they endorsed me. They're my biggest fans. You know who they are. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Yeah, that's he hears asylum and relates it to his mum. You might be. I think you could be really onto something there. Yeah. Hello, Tone. Hope you well. Trump used to be a slang word for a fart during my school days. Yes, do a tiny Trump. The foul smell remains. Yes, certainly does. So, but anyway, I just found that very, very interesting. But give me a quick minute. Just give me a quick. So, yes, let's have a little brief interlude. Especially, we've all seen the riots. Let's go into the world of lyrical wax. If like I've said before, if you not following Lyrical Wax on Twitter, what are you doing with your life? Absolute genius. We've heard of the Magic Roundabout. This is the tragic Blackpool Roundabout. Enjoy, my friends. Boom. Brilliant. brilliant. The only thing that we're missing there in that tragic roundabout was Michael Fabricant with his bungle hair. No, not bungle. I've forgotten the name of it now. Name of his hair. Is it Dougal? Dougal, I think his name was. With his Dougal hairdo. But yeah, it was just very, 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 very fascinating. Let's get back on there for a minute. Yeah, we're all cooking on gas now. Oh, what's happening at Downing Street? There was a load of fash kicking off earlier. I've not heard anything. Not heard anything about that, but very, very interesting. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh yeah. Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah, totally agree, Billy Kershaw. Yeah, the trouble with roundabouts is that you got to give way to the right. Boom. Mwah. Brilliant. Absolutely top class. You know, joke of the night, probably joke of the week, without a doubt. But anyway, let's have a head off into this it's like, as I say, when I was reading it earlier, more often than not, it was a case of there'd be an article underneath, and it would just, and this one popped up, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So I read that, and what I I just basically sort of like save the links, and I thought maybe do a little something like this, or maybe help put it towards a bit of a video. But as I said, decided to do it on the live stream, and so I basically had a read of this. Can Trump followers be called a cult? Pardon me. And this is written by a guy called Hogan. Not that. What you gonna do? And ripping his shirt off. Not that Hogan. Hogan M. Sherrow, PhD. Yeah, and he basically asks, can Trump followers be called a cult? I have my own view on that, but anyway, he goes on about American politics has always had its rock stars. Our very first president, George Washington, was so popular that his 8-day trip to Mont Vermont to New York in April of 1789 was celebrated by nearly every city with a celebrity dinner along the way. Theodore Roosevelt was such a popular figure that he would attract capacity crowds everywhere he went, and he became a hero to progressives and conservatives alike. Yeah, and John F. Kennedy, with his youth, vitality, and good looks, combined with his beauty, elegance, and grace of Jackie Kennedy, brought Camelot. I know how they feel, you know, with my good looks combined, grace and elegance and beauty. How am I kidding? I've got a face for radio. A face only your mother can love. And romanticisation to the White House. Ronald Reagan, yeah, not a lot of people are fans of him now, are they really? With his Reaganomics. An actual movie star became a veneered figure to millions of Americans and a gold standard for modern conservatism. More recently, Barack Obama symbolised hope and change for millions of Americans while demonising the intelligence and the sense of humour, demonstrating what an idiot I am, demonstrating that intelligence and a sense of humour were not impediments to great leadership. Each of these presidents had what is often called the cult of personality. Yet it could be argued that none of them have quite the following that Donald Trump has. Would it be fair to label Trump followers a cult? Anyway, when Donald Trump trust fund kid turned real estate developer, turned casino owner, turned USFL team owner, turned reality TV star, turned professional wrestler, turned politician, first announced his candidacy for presidency, targeted a specific group of voters. Many of his early supporters were disillusioned, dejected, disenfranchised Americans seeking something different from their political leaders. They had grown tired of the partisan bickering and gridlock that they saw in Washington, D.C. They were tired of seeing government handouts of Wall Street while Main Street was struggling to get by. And many were looking for someone to shake things up inside the Beltway. Many were involved in the Tea Party movement over the past 15 years, and many were angry that President Obama had served 2 terms in the Oval Office, and many were looking for a in-group that would provide them with a sense of something bigger than themselves that they could believe in. And enter the Donald J. Trump had promised to not only shake things up in Washington, but to drain the swamp. Yes, I'm going to drain the swamp. That swamp will be so drained. You could eat your dinner off it. And he also promised to make America great again, especially for the specific in-group of Americans. In Mr. Trump's plan, this included massive tax cuts for the rich. Yeah, what a shocker. Massive deregulation of business across the nation and limitations of immigration from Muslim nations, Latin America, and what he called shithole countries. Yes, they have a hole that is full of shithole countries. He characterized immigrants and those seeking asylum from Mexico and other Latin American countries as drug dealers, murderers, and rapists. Some of them were nice people as well, you know. And he supported increased immigration from white Northern Europe countries. He also claimed that neo-Nazi marching in a white power demonstration on Charlottesville, Virginia, were fine people. There were fine people on both sides. Yes, very, very fine people, especially those with the white mask, the pointy hat. They were wonderful. They endorsed me, you know. Many of Donald Trump's supporters were looking for someone to shake things up and provide them with an in-group to join. While some don't believe that Mr. Trump and his followers comprise a cult, in my view, the group fulfills the criteria typically used in sociological, religious, and psychological circles to identify a cult. Nearly said a Trump then. What an idiot. It also says, but definitions vary, but the basic one that applies across disciplines is a religion or sect generally considered to be extremist or false under the guidance of an authoritarian charismatic leader for whom members exhibit fixed, even religious veneration. Mr. Trump's most devout followers are a relatively small part of the US electorate. They tend to believe in the very specific idea of patriotism that includes international isolationism and isolationism and xenophobia under the guidance of a man who some claim was chosen by God. Yes, he's a nice person. He loves me. Yes, I'm chosen by God. And in other words, but what it should really be, I am the one who chooses God. I choose God, not I'm chosen by God. I choose God to lead them in, to lead them. To further understand how Mr. Trump and his followers may match the definition of a cult, it is helpful to look at how their behaviours compare to the most common behaviours of cults. Cults are typically characterised by one characteristic leader is the group's sole authority. In truth, only this leader decides or has the right to approve all policies and practices. An example, many of Trump's supporters reportedly believe that the presidential election was fraudulent based on Mr. Trump's claims that it was. And members are zealous, protective, and unquestionably committed to the leader. They're not wrong there. an example, a group of militant fans of Mr. Trump tried to run a Biden-Harris campaign bus off the road in Texas, endangering multiple drivers on the highway. Yeah, not surprised. Members regard the leader's beliefs and practices truth and law. The leader affirms and enforces this idea. An example, many of Trump's supporters reportedly believe his false claims about immigrants coming over here likely to commit serious crimes, but still some of them still nice people. And then the group uses public humiliation or punishment to suppress individualism and doubt. And an example, during the impeachment trial of Mr. Trump, his supporters in the general public and Congress relied on insulting the Democrats, presenting the case and their witness instead of arguing facts. Also, the criticism or jokes about the leader or group are taken very seriously and likely punished. Yeah, and Rick's example, the refusal to participate in the White House Correspondents' Dinner for 4 straight years may be an example of this approach. Yes, probably is actually, isn't it? The group is elitist, claiming special status for itself, its leaders, and its members. And example, some of Trump's followers report believing that they are more patriotic than others. And the leader and members maintain there is only one path to truth and salvation. And the example is that Mr. Trump has repeated the position that only he can fix America's problems. Yes, I'm Mr. Fixer. I'm Donald Fixer Trump, the only man who can fix America's problems. And then Donald Trump has effectively used the pull of his personality to convince many of his followers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. He has convinced them that they are part of an in-group of real Americans that can achieve a level of greatness that they dream of, and that only he can lead them to that mythical state. And we are seeing the consequences of this play out now in our national elections. And it says a topic I will get into in the second part of this series. Now, whether he did, I don't know, but interesting. I think you safely say, yes, they are definitely a cult, aren't they? Without a doubt. Daisy Dukes of Hazzard, yes. Yeah. Black Sheep, seen anyone, while his most ardent, nutty supporters definitely drink the Kool-Aid, or don't they just, Tom? Absolutely, they certainly do. Certainly do. Biden had that issue too, thankfully. Yeah, you could possibly be right there, Stunt. Yeah, he did have that issue. And like, you can definitely tell that it's really, really different to what. But anyway, we'll just mosey on through this quick little article. It's from the Harvard Gazette. It was just sort of like think twice before saying cult. So I just found this quite interesting. You know, there's a survey shows intended by polling released last month when asked, and in a CBS News YouGov survey, who tells them that 71% of likely Republican primary voters named Trump over their family and friends, 63% conservative media, 56%, and even religious leaders, 42%. And while politics does share some core DNA with cults, and Trump maintains an unusually powerful hold over MAGA supporters, the reality of the situation is more complicated than a survey or a pundit that can capture, says Bethany Burham. Thank God somebody with a not a difficult name. Not for this poor Yorkshireman's teeth and tongue. And she's a research scientist in psychology who teaches a Harvard course on cult behaviour. And the interview has been edited, and it said it's been edited, but anyway, asks a question. How the new polling suggests a cult around the former president, according to his detractors. That's what you think. And she says, I think the cultness on the I tend to think of cultness on the spectrum, and they are elements of what in America, elements of that in a lot of politics. Donald Trump is one of the more extreme examples where he does have all this loyalty. But if you think about my definition, it's on the border. Are people moving their beliefs away from the general society? A large proportion of the country thinks Trump is great. That has risen to prominence. Now that has risen to prominence, you can ask how he got there. And it's pretty normal belief to have in certain sections of the country. And it goes on to say, I don't think what perceptions of people, I don't think what percentage of people follow bad advice that Trump gives, but that would be an example similar to what we see in a cult, where you're doing something against your interest. Yes, he made claims during COVID that certain medical treatments that didn't work and might be harmful, people trying these treatments were doing something against their interests. People who give him more money than they really should are acting against their interests. And there are some people who do that. There are probably a lot of people, though, who don't do any of that stuff either. So for them, it's a little trickier to determine whether they are acting against their interests because of the diffuse influence of a vote. And if I vote for Donald Trump the most, get the teeth in, if I vote for Donald Trump, that almost has no impact on anything because my vote is so small in proportion to all the votes cast. And collectively, we have a big impact. But me personally, what incentive do I really have what incentive do I really have to get that vote right? What sometimes happens in politics is that the social incentives are bigger than the incentives to get it right. I think this explains a lot of problems in politics because the social incentives can be quite strong to say, demonstrate loyalty to your party, demonstrate loyalty to the person that everyone around you likes. And this is not limited to Republicans. Everybody has this social pressure to have certain kinds of belief that their friends and family and neighbours have. Yeah, I suppose there's something in that without a doubt. My guess is that when they're evaluating how much they trust Trump, many Republicans are really signalling loyalty. Yeah, it gets used a lot in it. Loyalty to their group based on that incentive to be loyal to the Republican Party or loyal to their local community of Trump voters. When they start to think about their family and friends, people they really know, it becomes more of a real question of trust. How accurate is my mum about stuff? And then she was asked what makes a cult a cult. Interesting question. And she says, everybody, even in the intellectual field, has a slightly different definition. How I define it in my class is by two benchmarks. First is cults manage to shift people's beliefs rapidly away from the broader society and away from the beliefs they had before they joined. The second thing I emphasise is that cult members act against their own interests and their family's interests quite strikingly. The reason I highlight those two things is that when I'm talking about the psychology of cults, it's interesting. I'm interested in how the cult, and usually the cult leader, is able to have this kind of influence. And typically, the cult leader is benefiting in an exploitative way of these two things. So many of those strange beliefs are about the leader being very important, often divine, the key to salvation against the apocalypse, and etc. And then, more importantly, often the cult members' labour is making the leader rich or female. Cult members are expected to have sex with the leader, and all men, besides the leader, have to be celibate. Cult members make extreme sacrifices that benefit the leader. She gets asked, are there any types of people or certain life circumstances that make people more vulnerable to cult thinking? And Burham said it's common to feel like the people who join cults must really be vulnerable in some way. And sometimes that's true, but different cults target different kinds of people. There's not just one demographic that is susceptible to cults. Many very successful, pretty empowered people have joined cults over the years. Some cult target young people because young people can be somewhat vulnerable. Who joins seems to be determined by who the cult leader targets and how their message is framed for a given group, as opposed to those being certain people who are susceptible to cults. In general, most people could potentially be drawn in. And asked, is higher education any bulwark against falling prey to cults? And she replies, definitely not. I've seen no evidence that helps at all. Many target college students or target people with advanced education. In fact, sometimes cults want more economically prosperous or successful people. There are some cults that target the down and out people who are the most vulnerable, but it's the exception because the cult leader often wants to extract money and other talents and benefits from the member. They often go after educated people. I suppose that's a little bit different with Trump, because those in his cult, they're not exactly rich, are they? So that's interesting. But anyway, she would ask, what are some common red flags to watch for? And Burham replies, almost all cults are pretty ambiguous at the beginning, and some even outright lie. Some say they are different organization than they are. So that can happen. Anything that gives someone tremendous control over you, like moving to an isolated location, giving up your resources, or cutting off ties with friends and family. Even if they have the most noble justification, be very, very careful. That is extremely common in the worst cults, encouraging you to be less connected to friends and family, or an outside job, or other demands or pressures that make you more dependent on the group are usually a bad sign. Anything that makes you more dependent on the cult leader, be wary of that. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. And then goes on to say, another one is how dissent is handled. Cults often prevent people from coordinating against the leader by making it really hard for anyone to dissent or to find other people who disagree. It's not acceptable to say things against the group or criticize the group in any way. That's another big red flag. A really important one I talk about quite a lot is where are the resources and power flowing? Are they all flowing to the leader? Is that person getting really rich off the organisation? Yeah, I suppose it is in a way. Is there sexual stuff going on where their leader has more sexual power and is sleeping with members of a group? All of those things are definitely red flags as well. And the trick is that if you're interested in joining this group, it's probably because you're really excited about it and really inspired by it. So it takes a little work to be skeptical and look past the noble justifications to the dangerous concentration of power. Really, really interesting. Quite interesting. Yeah, what do you have to say? Yes, I certainly did. Certainly did, Sir Larry. Yeah, it was just say if anyone can dead. Top as one of the angels of the dead. They hello, Eric Davis, and hope you well. They won't keep Republicans from Harris quiet though. Won't keep Republicans for Harris quiet though. Yes. I've been hearing quite a few stories about Republicans who were being lifelong Republicans, but they just cannot vote for Donald Trump. No chance. Absolutely no chance. But anyway, just give me a quick minute. So this is, see how long this goes on for. This is an interesting. This will be the last article because it's as I was sort of like looking for a bit of it, and this article just popped up and talks about how and why Americans become susceptible to the toxic allure of cults, and I know reading that, I found it fascinating because America does seem to give off the air of that it starts as if the air that they seem to love cults, you know. They seem to be the cult central of the world, and this is I think it's an interview with a woman called Kate Gale, and she joined a cult, and it's a little bit, and I think but anyway, I'm rabbiting on, but it basically gives you a little insight as someone who spent 15 years in a cult. Yeah, Kate Gale. I'm with it now. Yeah, this is Kate Gale, who is someone who spent 15 years in a cult. I found in Amanda Montell's new book, Cultish: The Language of Fanaticism, a way to understand something about cults that all my soul-crushing time there didn't give me. And I've long known that cults are a way of controlling people, and Amanda Montell is interested in the larger topics of cultish behaviour and the ways that those communities use us to buy into a system. Her book is about how cultish influence is all around us in the form of language, and none of us are completely immune to it. Yeah, Amanda and I, but anyway, had a conversation, started debunk myths about cult members and discuss why popular Americans in particular are so pulled in cultish affiliations. And it starts off with, I was intrigued by your book and focus, but what makes behaviour cultish? As a cult survivor, I've always thought that the two elements of a cult are that cult leaders control your behaviour and they don't provide an exit strategy. What else would you say are the elements of a cult? And Amanda Montell said, and can I just say, thank God these two have got names I can pronounce without getting me tongue-tied and round my teeth. Thank God for that. but anyway, it's such an interesting question and a challenge one to answer, because I've found that cults really fall into a spectrum. That's one of the key arguments in my book. Scholars and survivors tend to disagree about where to draw the line past something is a cult, if the line exists at all, because so often the word cult is simply used to denounce deviant religious and social groups, which may not be any more dangerous than culturally accepted ones. You're in a cult? No, you're in a... No. Accepted ones, you're in a cult? No, you're in a cult. Of course, that is one to say that some groups ain't legitimately more dangerous, oppressive, or controlling than others. I'm just not sure that the words cult is how we distinguish between them. We need more specificity than that. So I think in the most destructive end of the cult spectrum, you find a group like Jonestown or Sinanson. Get the teeth in. A cult where my dad spent his 10 years. Wow. And I also think that in the real extreme cultist groups, they will make very lofty, grandiose and deceptive promises like, this is the answer to the world's suffering. Yes, I'm the one that can fix everything as well, I suppose. But they're hiding what the cost of membership will really be. They're hiding the uglier parts of what being in that group will look like. Another feature is an intense us versus them ideology. You isolate someone physically, but also psychologically. You make them feel special and chosen, and then you use that as an excuse to mistreat them later. There's about my book, talks about how language works to achieve all those things. And it says, so you talk about different cult leaders in the book, and most cult leaders have ended up being men. Charismatic men. Now, I suppose for me with Trump, I think that's a bit of an argument there, but anyway. And of course, it helps to be a bit of an extrovert. Manson comes to mind, but one of the things that people always have asked me in the years I've been out is what made people follow the leader of the cult I was in. George was his name. What did he have going for him? Yeah, exactly. And she goes on to say, when I was a child and we joined, only 3, and it's hard for me to imagine exactly what my mother and other adults saw in him. Yeah, I know what she means. But you really followed through with an answer about cult leaders, including Jim Jones, who attracted so many African Americans to his cult, which was particularly strange. What do you think pulls people to these charismatic men like David Koresh and so on? And said, I think the most fundamental, when a white middle-aged, seemingly educated man speaks confidently about God and government, a lot of us are likely to listen by default. That sort of voice is just the default sound of authority in our culture. I sometimes joke that cult leaders like David Koresh and Keith Raniere, the leader of the NXIVM, I have no idea what that is, but anyway, all the way to cult leaders like Elon Musk. Interesting. And Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, could be first cousins because they look so much alike. This is just this type of guy who matches our perceptions of power and who we think deserves it. It has little to do with charm or some kind of magical charisma. Actually, it's a question of who are we willing to listen to by default. Interesting. Now, Jim Jones was a little bit special because he was able to appeal to such a wide range of different people from different backgrounds, and this had everything to do with his diabolical style of code switching. He learned to master the socialite of so many different groups, from countercultural college kids who could be smitten by him waxing socialist, all the way to older black women active in the church. Wow. Consistently, survivors told me that the first conversation they ever had with Jim Jones, it felt like he was speaking their language. Yeah, interesting. He was widely read, well studied, and he had ties to all the right people in San Francisco. Angela Davis, the Black Panthers, and others. So he seemed quite trustworthy, but his bottom line was always power. So he didn't learn to quote It's Nitsich. Here comes the difficult names. I always get butcher these, so do apologise. Or preach like Father Divine for any other reason than to exchange these skills for something pernicious later. I just think we're all conditioned to trust a confident white man speaking from a position of authority, saying, "I have the answers. I have single-handedly pull you out of suffering. I know words. I have the best words." There are often a lot of women in cults. Can you talk about that? Yeah, interesting. Again, I think it depends on your definition of the word cult, but what I'll say is this: it's not that women are simply easy to hoodwink. For example, in the Jonestown massacre, black women died in disproportionate numbers, and by the way, Jonestown was more of a murder, coerced suicide. Not really a suicide, it was as it's been painted, and I'm quoting the feminist Jonestown scholar, oh, Jesus Christ, Sakivu Hutchinson here. Jesus. That happened mostly because black women were especially vulnerable due to their history of sexist and racial exploitation. And one of the reasons why so many of these women remained loyal and ultimately perished was because they had so much to gain from the movement that promised them something better, which of course turned out to be a lie. And I think that true of women of all kinds of different backgrounds, traditional religion and patriarchy in general have not been too kind to them. So when someone else comes in and tells you, "Hey, I have a different way," that sounds really promising, especially if you're young and being love bombed by the older man and you're college educated and full of hope. Which goes on about in the cult. She speaks about the cult that she grew up in. There was a group that was recruited from elite colleges in the northeast, should I say. They were really just looking for a solution. And my father said to me later about my mother, she needed to believe in something. Her dad taught at Cornell. Her ex-husband went on to become a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. She was in college when she was recruited, but she desperately needed something to believe in. You talk about that in your book, this whole idea of the person who needs something to believe in, but is smart and alert and imaginative, which pushes back against this theory that people who wind up in cults are just not smart enough to figure out life for themselves. And she agrees and says, I'm really trying to implicate everybody to some extent in the book because I don't like these blatant sanctimonious myths that the people who wind up in cultish groups are desperate, disturbed, naive, or intellectually inferior. Stephen Hassan, a well-known cult expert and an ex-Mooner. I used to have a mate who was called him Mooner. And that was short for Moonhead. I think we couldn't figure out why, but anyway. Ex-Mooner, who I spoke with for the book, actually used to recruit people for the Moonies, so he knows a little something about the type of person that cults go for, and it was always bright, open-minded, gung-ho, service-minded types. They don't want anyone desperate or unstable because they didn't want people who were likely to break down quickly. Oh. Interesting. Yeah. Yes, that's a great line, actually. It's a question of who are you willing to listen to by default. Yes. As she goes on, that's another thing I constantly found talking to so many cult survivors, that it was not that they had an excess of desperation. If anything, they had an excess of idealism. They were willing to stick it out. Of course, most people who show up to an introductory meeting or workshop for a group that ends up being dangerous don't join or stay very long. But for those who do, it wasn't stupidity that kept them there. It was optimism, confirmation bias, sunk cost fallacy. Yes, I remember reading about the sunk cost fallacy. That's quite interesting. And she goes on a book address many of the conversations I've had with people over the years. And one of them is whether or not cults are a mostly American phenomenon. You also address the idea that over the pandemic there's been a burgeoning of cultish behaviours that started online. And she says, I had an acquaintance who I thought was a fairly normal person. She was just into health and things like that. But when I saw her, so she was emerging from the pandemic, I could see she'd done a deep dive into crazy because she'd been spending so much time online, and obviously she was not alone in that. I think the bigger question is, what is it about American culture that causes these waves of cults? We saw a lot of that, didn't we, over here when it came to the pandemic? People went down some right weird rabbit holes, didn't they? But anyway, Amanda says, compared to other developed nations, the US does have this really consistent relationship with cults. Whenever I talk to my friends who are not American and I tell them I'm writing this book about cults, their eyes do not light up the same way that American eyes do. And that's because across the world, levels of religiosity tend to be the lowest in countries with the highest standard of living, meaning strong education levels, long life expectancies, that sort of thing. But the US is an exception in that it's both highly developed and full of believers. And I'm not just talking about believers in traditional religion, which is declining. People are becoming less religiously affiliated, but they're not believing things less. They're not craving spirituality less. And this can be explained in part because while citizens of other advanced nations like Japan or Norway or Sweden or Canada enjoy all of these top-down resources like universal healthcare, the US is sort of this free-for-all generation after generation. This lack of institutional support is part of what paves the way for alternative groups. The American unrest in the 1960s and 70s gave us a spike in tumult that prompt the formation of so many cultist groups. Not like what we're seeing today, except today we have social media algorithms. Yeah, the ultimate cult leader and far more cultish subcultures are able to materialize and find followers online. Yeah, oh dear. Anyways, other things I really liked in the book was that I kept thinking about how in the years since she left, the farm, as they called it in New Hampshire, the farm I've not really, maybe that's something I might look up on and have a little read up on. I've really prided myself on being allergic to gurus. And then you talk about how after your father left, he's been pretty careful about gurus too. But as I read your book, I thought about all the ways that I've been susceptible to what you would call cultish behaviours. Like at some point, I had a friend who said to me, everybody's doing NutriBullet. Oh, I don't know, that's new one on me. So then I went and got a NutriBullet, but why? To chop my frigging vegetables, I had a blender. One of the things you talk about is that if we can be aware of what we're giving into, then that's better. And Amanda agrees, saying definitely. And I would want to be, and I don't want to be sensational. It was very, very important to me in the book to demonstrate how I'm not putting Soul Cycle on the same level as Scientology. It's not that at all. It's more that cultish influence to some degree imbues our everyday lives. None of us are entirely above it, and I'm also not at all arguing that we need to disengage from all cult-like groups. Humans are communal by nature, and we crave participation, even in irrational or supernatural things. Too much cynicism ruins the most magical parts of being alive, but what I like to say is that it's important to maintain a vigilant tingle in your brain. This thing that tells you that your identity comes not from one singular guru or ideology, but from a vast array of influences, languages and experiences. It's important to trust reality above all else. Cultish influence, to some degree, imbues our everyday lives. None of us are entirely above it. That's quite a good line. Yeah, we're nearly finished. It's quite interesting. But anyway, by the end of the book, I came to the conclusion that maybe the best thing we can do is involve ourselves in multiple occultist groups. Best thing we can do is involve. There was this Jonestown survivor I spoke to named Laura Johnson Cole, who not only survived Jonestown, she happened not to be on the compound that day, but went ahead and joined Synonym right after that. That's interesting. You might think this lady sounds nuts, but she was incredibly bright, jovial, and kind. She was just determined to find a single commune that would fulfill all her dreams, but then wound up in two of the most infamous cults of all time. So after all that, her solution is stay safe was to join multiple groups. She was like, I'm going to be an immigrants' rights activist with this organisation. I'm going to get together with my old Synonym pals sometimes, and I'm going to be a Quaker. I get my teeth in, and I'm going to be a Quaker, and I guess so she sort of diversified her social and spiritual portfolio instead of putting all her eggs in one basket. So it goes on, you can stress throughout your book this idea of how special you feel once you learn a cult's language. Learning the language gives you access to the world inside the cult, and you actually go through a conversation between two Scientologists that to people outside would be completely unintelligible. Yeah, but controlling a person's language means that you've got complete control of the way they think. Talk to us a little bit about that. Let's talk about it. And I think if there is one big takeaway from your book, it was that we should all be thinking for ourselves. And there's a little linguistic theory called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Sorry if I butchered that, I do apologise. Which says that language influences thought, but it does not determine it. A Jonestown survivor I spoke to, Laura, said something like something that I liked. She said, "Oh, I was absolutely brainwashed, but I brainwashed myself." Yeah, I suppose that's one way of looking at it. And she also said, "I allowed myself to hear what I wanted to hear from Jim Jones because I wanted so badly for it to be true." And if you don't want on any level to believe what a guru is saying or to use their language, you can absolutely resist. They can't control your thoughts. But With a touch of willingness, language can do so much to obscure truth, trigger emotional responses, instill problematic ideology. All these things a cult needs to do, because you're right, we all love learning a secret code language. It makes us feel special and superior, but I always spoke to people who were born and raised in some of the most damaging cults in history, like the Children of the God, who even though they grew up only knowing the group's language, still knew on their gut level that this place was screwed up. Yeah. Interesting. It's like, I kind of sort of like, and I found that all them interesting, them articles interesting, because it just sort of like gives you the little insight, bit of understanding of why they go down the route that they do. So I just found that a little bit interesting. I just realised, by God, we've been going for 2 hours. I think, well, see if we can find a little bit of an interesting video before we go, because I would watch that, but it's 18 minutes long, so let's see if there's. Oh, that's still one of my favourite. We asked 100 people to name a reputable news source. You said human trafficker Andrew Tate. Yes. But anyway, this is Lyrical Wax. Genius.
There were stories online from some very prominent folks with big followings, Andrew Tate, etc.
You amplified that.
Suggesting the man had crossed the English Channel in a boat.
You amplified that.
Other suggestions that he was an active Muslim.
You amplified that. You amplified that. You amplified that. You amplified that.
There were stories on.
Yes. If you're on Twitter, follow Lyrical Wax. Absolute genius. But I think what we'll do before we go, let's finish off with this, with the legend that is Akala, where he just schools our Tommy 10 names. Is absolute. You know, if you sit in a room with Akala, you just got to sit down and listen to the pearls of wisdom of the guy. Absolutely brilliant.
Mr. Robinson, there are no paedophiles who are white, and white people have never bombed anyone else's country.
87% of grooming cases are Muslim, yet 5% of the country is Muslim.
You spoke. Yeah. Let me speak. Now, this is exactly the issue, is what I'm saying, right? As much as I agree with what's being said about this man and his organisation, right?
Can you back up,
we focus on fringe bigots rather than dealing with the real central issue that we have a political system. I can't count how many times I've read the Daily Mail or some other paper, not that I read these rags, and it says, Pakistani man does blah. When Jimmy Savile is convicted or something comes out about him, is his ethnicity or his religious beliefs put forward as the primary reason for him committing an offence? No. But we can... we stoke the flames of this kind of bigotry, right? And then act shocked when it comes out.
No one's prepared to explain what I've said that's bigotry.
One second. For those who don't know, Baghdad was the intellectual, cultural centre of mathematics and art and science about 1,000 years ago, for quite a long time. No one blames Islam for that. So negative people who happen to be Muslim, yes, of course, it's your religion that causes it. But if you pioneer mathematics and science and introduce algebra into Europe and the guitar and coffees and lemons, that's not because you're Muslim.
Well, the people...
Okay. I'm going to get an opposing view from Dipper.
This is exactly what I said at the beginning of the programme. When we deal with racism, rather than dealing with the structural reality and all this nonsense about people are racist because they're frustrated about their life, it's totally classist. What we're saying, only working class people are racist. Do me a favour. Racism was not invented by working class people. It was invented by elite academics through pseudo-scientific nonsense and perpetuated as part of political policy. From the top down, not the bottom up. In fact, if we look back at the history of this country, when there were slave catchers in the streets, people had far more allies in working class parts of London than they did from rich people who were trying to catch them and send them back to the Caribbean. So let's be honest about the history and deal with the bigger problems of structural racism, because then smaller things and smaller frustrations that are breeding this type of nonsense won't be excavated so much. But this is the problem, is we focus on nonsense like this rather than dealing with why a British soldier you've probably never heard of, a gentleman called Christopher Alder, died in 1999 in police custody. There is footage on YouTube that you can see for yourself of him on the floor with his bottom half exposed.
Him chomping at the bit, he's getting annoyed, isn't it?
Police officers around him making monkey noises over his dead body. You've never heard his name. Why?
Legend, absolute legend. I know it's old as that one. But it's just golden, absolutely golden. And so, but anyway, what did you think of all that? I found it fascinating. I know it's a lot of reading and a lot to take in, but it was just, it gave me a little bit of a better understanding where how people are, because especially when it comes to the Trump supporters, because I find them more fascinating than Trump himself, because I just don't see what they see. But you know, that's another man's pleasure, I suppose. But anyway, yeah. If I'm honest, Captain Bart Roberts, if we hadn't been on for so long, I'd have probably played it, because he just knocked that speech out the park, didn't he? But it's 18 minutes long. We've been here for 2 hours as it is, and so, but yeah, but to watch a Carla he just scolded him. But anyway, I do hope you enjoyed tonight's live stream. I want to have a lovely weekend, and I do hope you got a lot out of this, because I know I did when I was reading through it. I found a lot, and a lot of the stuff I did read was sort of like eye-opening and give me a better understanding of where things are. But as I say, what time is it now? I don't want to be carrying on any longer, because I don't want to be, yeah, because I don't want to be jumping into anybody's live stream any longer. But I just want to say thank you for joining me, and also thanks for sticking with us as long as you want, and have a lovely weekend, my friends. And I'll just say take care, my friends, and also look after yourselves and have a lovely weekend, and be good at it. And if you can't be good at it, and don't do anything I want.